This video is about why I'm now trying to beat terminal cancer and how I'm doing that. So it is 2nd of August, almost 1 o'clock in the morning, in western Tokyo. It's been raining very heavily all day, but finally the rain stopped. So when I was diagnosed with terminal cancer last June, I think end of June it was, 2016, it was made very clear to me, obviously I had quite a short time to live, because that's what happens to people with my type of cancer, which is colon cancer that spread to the peritoneum, liver and lymph nodes. It's a lot of cancer, and there have, as far as I can tell, there have been no long-term survivors, so basically no one's lived for kind of several years or anything like that with this diagnosis. It's possible in non-English speaking countries there have been some long-term survivors, because obviously I'm kind of researching on the web in English, but the definition of terminal cancer is you're going to die from it, and certain cancers you may live 5 years from the diagnosis, others like pancreatic cancer pretty much less than a year really. And now I've lived a year since the diagnosis, and which is about as long as I can expect to live really from this. I'm pretty lucky to get this far, but what is possibly surprising is my physical condition at the moment is quite good. Blood test results, I have a blood test every 2 weeks after a blood test to see if I'm fit enough for chemotherapy, and blood test results have been pretty good. A couple of weeks ago and last month I had some bad results. So I had a low platelet count. Platelets are the things that make your blood sticky. Currently that's kind of returned to safe levels, and I've got anemia, which means my blood isn't very able to hold oxygen, but it's not bad at all. Kind of quite far from having to have iron tablets and blood transfusions and that kind of thing. So the reason that now I think it really is worth a serious fight is that because my condition is good, it means I can tolerate more treatment, basically. Chemotherapy is very tough on the body. It is poison. The idea is that you sort of try and poison the cancer without poisoning the patient, or without killing the patient, rather. The patient gets poisoned from even small amounts of chemotherapy. Although it is dose dependent, so it's possible to give like 10% of the recommended dose and not have any side effects at all, which may be a possibility for me in the future. So because my condition's pretty good, I can tolerate quite a lot of treatment at the moment. So it is worth looking at other treatments, and how I'm trying to fight basically is, one thing is multiple therapies. So when cancer spreads from one part of the body to a distant part of the body, That's kind of one of the definitions of terminal cancer, I guess. And something happens. So before cancer spreads, there seems to be a period called tumour dormancy. And it's believed at this point there are genetic mutations going on in the cancer, and this is why it's so resistant to any treatment, really. So it's very hard to deal with. So what I'm doing at the moment is having multiple types of treatment. So chemotherapy, molecular targeted therapy, 2 types of immunotherapy. One is NK cell therapy, where some of my blood is removed and the white blood cells, I think, are cloned in a lab and then put back in me. Dendritic cell vaccine or something like that, which is trying to teach my immune system to target cancer. Hypothermia, I call it hypothermia therapy because hypothermia is like when you get really ill from being too hot in the sun, but doctors seem to just call it hypothermia, which could also be classed as a type of immunotherapy because it works through several mechanisms involving the immune system. Something called NK cell activation, so it wakes up the immune system, and various other ways. And I'm taking a drug called dichloroacetate, which is designed to change the microenvironment around the tumours. So the tumours have a layer of acid that protects them against your white blood cells. And dichloroacetate stops that layer of acid being formed by changing the metabolism of the cancer cells. So that's 6 different therapies I'm having at the moment. And the reason for that is to try and suppress or prevent or counteract the different mechanisms cancer has that allow it to avoid therapies working or prevent the therapies working. So my approach at the moment is just find as many possible therapies that may make a difference, and if I can get enough donations and it's practical to have those therapies, then have them. Physically, I could, if there was a new treatment in the US, I could fly out to the US and get the treatment. Financially, I couldn't because treatment in the US is insanely expensive. 10 to 50 times what I pay in Japan. I think it's really important to understand that there are people in the world being cured of terminal cancer. Absolutely. Doctors won't say it's a cure, they would say the cancer is in remission. But if a patient is in remission for a very long time, particularly if they're in remission for over 5 years with most cancers, it gets to a point where you have to say the cancer's cured. So there are people now who maybe have had a terminal cancer diagnosis a couple of years ago, and they're having a bunch of treatments now, and they're going to, 3-4 years' time, they're going to reach a point where the doctors say, well, actually, we have to say your cancer's cured now. I think that will be a normal thing to say in the future. I think currently when someone gets a terminal diagnosis, it's really important to say to them maybe your cancer is not curable today, however, it's possible you may be alive long enough for a new treatment to come along. or it's possible that you may tolerate the treatments for long enough to actually cure the cancer. So I'm continually looking for more cancer treatments, so I'm mainly looking on the web, so every day I'm kind of Googling for new treatments. I read a lot of medical papers. I listen to podcasts about cancer aimed at doctors, not patients, because the ones aimed at patients are usually not very good. So I typically listen to the ones aimed at either general doctors or actually aimed at oncologists. And yeah, that's why for the first time, basically, since I've got the terminal diagnosis, I actually think there is a small but real possibility of getting through this, which is just not something I could say even just a few months ago. It wouldn't have been a realistic thing to say, but now it is possible. Very small chance, maybe a few percent, but it's possible because I've got this far in this condition. If I had lived this long but I was now in hospital being fed through a tube, then I wouldn't be making this video, obviously. But to be in this condition, this healthy, which I have to say I believe is really down to two things. One is the immunotherapy. I think that's making a big difference. My understanding is that the immunotherapy is attacking the cancer successfully, whatever that means. But also the fact that it's boosting my immune system makes my body generally more healthy. And chemotherapy is trashing my immune system, as is the cancer itself, because the cancer has a lot of mechanisms that suppress the immune system. So one issue I have at the moment is a type of white blood cells called monocytes. My monocyte level is high, which is potentially suppressing my immune system, but I'm going to try a nutritional supplement that's meant to bring down monocyte levels. So I'm going to try that for probably a month or so and look at the blood test results, because my monocytes are measured every 2 weeks, and see if it makes any difference. The other reason I think I've got this far in this condition is that, and again partly because of the immunotherapy, I'm on reduced chemotherapy. So the standard chemotherapy for this type of cancer is called Folfox. I had that initially. I think I had it possibly 8 or 9 times, I think. It doesn't feel like I had it that many times, but I was dying at the time, quite majorly, so maybe my memory got a bit compressed. But I decided the side effects were too bad from one of the components, a platinum-based poison called oxaliplatin. So I talked to my oncologist and he agreed to stop it, and my tumours have continued to shrink without that platinum-based toxin. So I think that having less chemotherapy has kept my condition good, and therefore I can have chemotherapy for longer and maybe more of a chance of living. Chemotherapy is a very complex subject that I'll talk about in future videos. I've recently found quite good reason to believe that a lot of what I've known about chemotherapy is actually incorrect, because the way the research is done over the past 40 years is basically flawed. So I'll talk about that in an upcoming video. One of the possible paths towards curing the cancer is if I can shrink down the tumours in the liver a bit more, so that maybe a couple of them get below a centimetre. So there'd just be sort of one biggish tumour and kind of several that are too small to see on the scan. Then I could have one of these very high technology radiation treatments like CyberKnife or chemotherapy or ViewRay to kind of destroy the remaining big tumour. Now, if I did that, I'm sure the oncologist would not say, "You have cured your cancer." He would just say, "Yeah, you've got the cancer into remission." Liver surgeons are very sceptical about attacking cancer with these type of what's called image-guided radiotherapy. But when I talk to people really at the cutting edge of treatment, research scientists, they say probably in 5 years' time there'll be enough research that says the results from these super high technology radiation treatments are basically the same as hacking someone open and cutting out a big chunk of their liver or whatever the organ is. So that's one possible path. And then another path is just the idea of long-term remission through immunotherapy and chemotherapy. Just the idea that the immunotherapy particularly has these protective properties that stop the cancer spreading because they attack what are known as cancer stem cells, or more correctly as cancer cells with a stemness property. So not technically stem cells in the normal definition. So that's basically what I'm doing at the moment. Just as long as I'm in this condition, and assuming I can get enough money for treatment from all your kind donations, then I think I have a small chance of getting through this. And that would be amazing, really, because well, not least because I've pretty much decided that however long I live for now, cancer is going to be my life. So I will be doing my best to help others with cancer get through it. Whatever I can do to speed up research or whatever, find some kind of novel therapies, or just kind of collate the information out there, because there absolutely are people getting very good results with, obviously a tiny percentage of patients, but at some point it will be either possible to know in advance who's going to benefit from these novel therapies, possibly through genetic testing or something else, or hopefully it will be possible to add other therapies that make the main therapy work for more people. So instead of having 5% of people getting amazing results from immune checkpoint inhibitors, you might get 80% of people getting pretty good results from them, with some other drugs to sort of help them work better. So, thanks for watching. Please, if you can, share my link for my cancer fundraising, which is matthewdons.org. That's www.matthewdons.org. Lots of medical bills coming soon. I need another 3 month supply of dichloroacetate for one thing, which is like $2,000. Yeah, so thanks for watching. Cheers.